The diplomat's sacrifice. Captain Elena Vasquez stood at the observation deck of the UES Meridian, watching the massive alien structure grow larger in the viewport. The Galactic Tribunal Station was unlike anything humanity had ever built. A crystalline fortress that stretched for miles in every direction, pulsing with energy that seemed to bend space itself around its edges. After 18 months of careful negotiations through subspace communications, this moment had finally arrived. First contact with the galactic government. Elena adjusted her diplomatic uniform one final time. The deep blue fabric bore Earth's united symbol, a simple design that represented all of humanity's nations working together. Behind her, Dr. Marcus Chen was reviewing his stenobiological notes for the 100th time since they had entered alien space. His expertise in alien cultures would be crucial in the coming hours. "Captain, we're receiving docking instructions," announced Lieutenant Torres from the communication station. The young officer's voice carried a mixture of excitement and nervousness that Elena understood completely. This was history in the making. The docking process took nearly an hour. The alien station's technology interfaced with their ship through methods Elena couldn't begin to understand. When they finally felt the magnetic clamps engage, she gathered her small diplomatic team and prepared to make history. The airlock opened to reveal 3 alien beings waiting for them. The leader stood nearly 8 feet tall, his reptilian features sharp and angular. Scales the color of burnished bronze covered his elongated head, and his eyes were deep amber pools that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. This was Zektar, High Magistrate of the Galactic Tribunal, according to their previous communications. Beside him stood a being that looked like it had crawled out of humanity's nightmares, an insectoid creature with 4 arms, compound eyes that reflected rainbow colors, and mandibles that clicked constantly as it observed the humans. The third alien appeared almost plant-like, with bark-textured skin and leaves that rustled despite the absence of any breeze. "Welcome, humans of Terra," Zektar spoke through a translation device that rendered his hissing speech into perfect English. "I am High Magistrate Zektar. We have been most curious to meet your species." Elena stepped forward and offered a diplomatic bow. "Thank you for receiving us, High Magistrate. I am Captain Elena Vasquez, representing the United Earth Government. We come in peace, seeking friendship and cooperation with the galactic community." Zektar's expression was unreadable, but something in his amber eyes made Elena feel uneasy. "Indeed. Please, follow us to the tribunal chamber. There are matters we must discuss regarding your species' recent activities." As they walked through corridors that seemed designed for beings much larger than humans, Elena noticed the architecture was both beautiful and intimidating. Crystal formations jutted from the walls, each one glowing with different colors that seemed to respond to their presence. The ceiling arched high above them, disappearing into shadows that made her feel small and vulnerable. Dr. Chen whispered quietly beside her, "Captain, their body language suggests this isn't going to be the friendly meeting we expected." Elena nodded slightly, her military training kicking in. She had spent 15 years in Earth's Space Defense Force before becoming a diplomat, and her instincts were telling her something was very wrong here. The tribunal chamber was enormous, with seating for hundreds of different alien species. Most of the seats were empty, but Elena could see representatives from at least 20 different worlds watching them, with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. The humans were led to a platform in the center of the chamber, surrounded by the alien observers like defendants in a cosmic courtroom. High Magistrate Zektar took his position at an elevated podium that glowed with the same crystalline energy as the station walls. His voice echoed through the chamber as he began to speak. "Citizens of the Galactic Tribunal, we gather today to address the threat posed by the species known as humans, from the planet Terra in the Sol system." Elena felt her blood run cold. "High Magistrate, I believe there's been some misunderstanding. We came here for peaceful diplomatic contact, not to be put on trial." Zektar's amber eyes fixed on her with predatory intensity. "There is no misunderstanding, human. Your species has been under observation for the past 50 of your years. We have documented your wars, your violence, your rapid expansion into space. You represent everything the Galactic Tribunal was created to prevent. The insectoid being, who Elena now realized was Quinera from the Hive Collective, clicked its mandibles in what might have been disagreement. But before it could speak, Zektar continued his accusations. Exhibit 1, he announced as holographic displays filled the air around the platform. The humans' most recent planetary conflict, lasting 6 years and resulting in the deaths of millions. Elena stared at the images in shock. They showed scenes of warfare, but not from any conflict in human history. The soldiers wore uniforms she didn't recognize, the weapons were completely alien, and the landscapes were from worlds humanity had never visited. This is fabricated, she said firmly. These images are not from human conflicts. We've had no wars in the past 30 years. Exhibit 2, Zektar continued, ignoring her protests. Evidence of human expansion fleets preparing to invade neighboring systems. More holographic displays showed what appeared to be massive human warships, bristling with weapons Elena had never seen before. The ships bore human markings, but their design was completely foreign to anything Earth had ever built. Dr. Chen stepped forward, his scientific training overriding his diplomatic caution. High Magistrate, these images are clearly falsified. Our technology doesn't match what you're showing, and our exploration fleet consists of only 12 ships, all designed for peaceful research. The plant-like being rustled its leaves in what Elena hoped was agreement, but Zektar's expression remained coldly hostile. The evidence is clear, the High Magistrate declared. The human species represents an existential threat to galactic peace. They have shown throughout their history that they cannot coexist peacefully with others. Their rapid technological advancement, combined with their aggressive nature, makes them too dangerous to be allowed into the galactic community. Elena realized with growing horror that this wasn't a diplomatic meeting or even a fair trial. This was an execution disguised as justice. High Magistrate, please, give us a chance to prove that humanity has changed. We've overcome our violent past and are ready to be peaceful partners in the galaxy. For a moment, Zektar's expression seemed to soften slightly. Then his amber eyes hardened again. The decision has been made. Captain Elena Vasquez, as the representative of humanity, you are sentenced to neural dissolution as a warning to your species. Let this demonstrate to all worlds what happens to those who threaten galactic peace. The platform beneath Elena's feet began to glow with the same crystalline energy that powered the station. She felt a tingling sensation in her legs that quickly turned to pain. Neural dissolution, she realized, was designed to be both slow and agonizing. Dr. Chen, she managed to say as the energy field climbed higher up her body. Activate the emergency beacon. Make sure Earth knows what really happened here. Chen was already reaching for the hidden transmitter in his diplomatic case when alien guards moved to stop him. But Elena's final act as Earth's ambassador was to distract them by standing tall despite the agony consuming her body and delivering one last message. High Magistrate Zektar, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber despite the pain. You've made a terrible mistake today. You've shown the galaxy that the tribunal rules through fear, not justice. And you've shown humanity exactly what kind of enemies you really are. The neural dissolution reached her heart, and Captain Elena Vasquez died as she had lived, with courage, dignity, and an unshakable belief in humanity's potential for greatness. Dr. Chen managed to activate the beacon before the guards reached him. The signal burst through subspace toward Earth, carrying video recordings of the entire proceeding and Elena's final words. As the guards dragged him away to imprisonment, he took comfort in knowing that humanity would learn the truth about the Galactic Tribunal. High Magistrate Zektar watched the human captain's death with satisfaction, believing he had prevented a future war by eliminating a potential threat. Around the chamber, some alien representatives nodded their approval, while others, like Quinara, watched in uncomfortable silence. What none of them realized was that Alina's emergency beacon carried more than just a recording of her execution. Hidden in the signal's data stream was a complete scan of the Tribunal Station's defensive systems, weapon placements, and structural weaknesses. Alina's military training had served humanity well, even in death. The beacon reached Earth's deep space monitoring stations 18 hours later. Admiral Sarah Cross was awakened in her quarters at Luna Command by an urgent priority alert. As she watched the recording of Alina's execution, her expression grew colder with each passing minute. Admiral Cross had served alongside Alina Vasquez during the Titan colony defense, and she knew that her old friend would have found a way to turn even her death into an advantage for humanity. The hidden data in the beacon confirmed her suspicions. Alina had given them everything they needed to strike back. Within hours, emergency sessions were being held in every human government on Earth and the colonies. The message was clear and unanimous. The Galactic Tribunal had made a fatal error in judgment. They had assumed humanity was weak because they sought peace. They were about to learn the difference between choosing peace and being incapable of war. As the beacon's data was analyzed by Earth's military scientists, Admiral Cross began issuing orders that would change the course of galactic history. The alien tribunal had executed a human diplomat under false pretenses, believing it would intimidate humanity into isolation. Instead, they had just declared war on the most adaptable, resourceful, and determined species the galaxy had ever seen. The Reckoning. Admiral Sarah Cross stood in the command center of the newly constructed Terra Station, watching as humanity's first battle fleet prepared for launch. The past 6 months had seen the most rapid military buildup in human history, as every nation on Earth and the colonies contributed resources to a single unified goal: justice for Alina Vasquez and the end of the corrupt Galactic Tribunal. The fleet that now hung in space around Earth's moon would have been impossible to build using conventional technology. But humanity had secrets that the Tribunal never suspected. The peaceful exploration ships they had observed were indeed humanity's public face to the galaxy. What they hadn't seen were the black projects, the theoretical weapons, and the contingency plans that every species develops when they first venture into an unknown universe. Admiral, called Commander Jake Morrison from the bridge of the UES Retribution, the fleet's flagship. All ships report ready for fold space jump. We can begin the operation on your command. Cross looked out at the assembled fleet, 47 ships that represented the best of human engineering and innovation. Each vessel was equipped with weapons the Tribunal had never encountered and defensive systems based on technology humanity had developed in secret. The aliens had made the mistake of underestimating a species that had survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, and their own violent history through sheer adaptability. Commander Morrison, she responded, signal all ships. Operation Righteous Fury is now active. Jump coordinates are locked on the Tribunal Station. We'll show them what happens when you murder human diplomats under false pretenses. The fold space jump took only minutes, but it carried the human fleet across thousands of light years to the crystalline fortress where Alina had died. As they emerged from the spatial fold, proximity alarms began blaring on every ship. Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures, reported Lieutenant Park from the sensor station. The Tribunal Station is launching defensive platforms, and I'm counting at least 200 alien warships moving to intercept us. Cross smiled grimly. The Tribunal was responding exactly as their intelligence had predicted. All ships implement Pattern Omega. Let's see how they handle human pack tactics. The human fleet scattered in what appeared to be complete disarray, but it was actually a carefully choreographed maneuver that Alina's reconnaissance data had made possible. Each ship knew exactly where the station's blind spots were located, and they used that knowledge to maximum advantage. The alien defenders opened fire first, their energy weapons creating brilliant displays of light in the vacuum of space. But the human ships seemed to dance between the attacks, their movements unpredictable and chaotic to alien sensibilities that favored formation flying and coordinated assaults. Target the command platform. ordered Commander Morrison from the Retribution. "Remember, we're not here to conquer. We're here to execute criminals." High Magistrate Zektar watched the battle from his command chamber with growing disbelief. The human ships were using tactics unlike anything in the Tribunal's military databases. They fought like a pack of wolves, coordinating without apparent communication, striking from unexpected angles, and adapting their strategy moment by moment as the battle progressed. "How many ships do they have?" he demanded from his tactical officers. "Fewer than 50, High Magistrate," replied the tactical coordinator, a being whose crystalline body pulsed with stress patterns. "But their effectiveness ratio is unlike anything we've encountered. They're eliminating our forces at a rate of 4 to 1. Zektar's amber eyes narrowed as he realized the magnitude of his error. The humans weren't just more capable than he had assumed. They were operating on a completely different level of military sophistication. Every assumption the Tribunal had made about human capabilities was proving disastrously wrong. "Sir," interrupted another officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. It's directed specifically at you." "Put it through," Zektar ordered, wondering what threats or demands the humans would make. Admiral Cross's face appeared on the main display, her expression cold as the void of space. "High Magistrate Zektar, I am Admiral Sarah Cross of the United Earth Defense Force. 6 months ago, you murdered Captain Elena Vasquez under false pretenses and broadcast her execution as a warning to humanity." Zektar straightened in his command chair, trying to project authority even as explosions lit up the space around his station. "Admiral Cross, your attack on this station is an act of war against the entire galactic community. Withdraw your forces immediately or face the consequences." Cross's expression didn't change. "The only consequence that matters here is yours, Zektar. You fabricated evidence, conducted a sham trial, and executed an innocent diplomat. That makes you a war criminal by both human and galactic law." "The Tribunal is the law in this galaxy," Zektar responded. "We have maintained peace for over 1,000 years. You've maintained control through fear and intimidation," Cross corrected. "That ends today. We're hereby dissolving your corrupt organization and establishing a new Galactic Council based on actual justice and mutual respect." Around the battle zone, something unexpected was happening. Ships bearing the markings of various alien species were approaching, but they weren't joining the fight against humanity. Instead, they were positioning themselves between the human fleet and the remaining Tribunal forces. Quinn Era of the Hive Collective spoke over the communication channel, her translated voice carrying clearly to both fleets. "Admiral Cross, the Hive Collective formally requests to join your action against the Tribunal. We have long suspected their methods, but we lacked the courage to act alone." More voices joined the channel. The Aquatic Union, the Stellar Nomads, even the usually neutral Silicon Confederation added their support to humanity's cause. Elena's execution had not intimidated them as Zektar intended. Instead, it had revealed the Tribunal's true nature and given them a reason to stand up against corruption. "High Magistrate," Cross continued, "you're going to surrender yourself for trial. A real trial, with actual evidence and fair judgment. Refuse, and we'll take this station apart piece by piece until we find you." Zektar looked around his command chamber at the faces of his officers. He could see doubt in their expressions, fear in their body language. The certainty that had driven the Tribunal for centuries was crumbling under the weight of human determination and alien solidarity. "The station's shields are failing," reported a tactical officer. "Hull breaches on levels 12 through 18. Life support is compromised in the detention sections." Commander Morrison's voice cut through the communications channel. "High Magistrate, we're detecting human life signs in your detention levels. Dr. Marcus Chen is still alive down there. If anything happens to him, this conversation becomes very different." The threat was clear. Humanity had come for justice, but they would accept vengeance if their people were harmed further. Zektar made his decision. Standing slowly from his command chair, he activated the station-wide communication system. All tribunal forces, this is High Magistrate Sektar. Cease fire and stand down. I am surrendering to human custody pending trial for crimes against galactic peace. The battle ended as suddenly as it had begun. Human ships moved to secure the station, while their new alien allies formed a protective perimeter. Within hours, Dr. Chen was rescued from the detention levels, weak but unharmed, and the surviving tribunal leadership was in human custody. 3 weeks later, Admiral Cross stood at the podium of the new Galactic Assembly, addressing representatives from over 100 worlds. The crystalline chamber had been transformed from a place of intimidation into a forum for genuine cooperation and debate. Friends and allies, she began, we gather today not as conquerors and conquered, but as partners in building a better galaxy. The old tribunal ruled through fear. The new assembly will govern through consent and mutual respect. In the front row, Dr. Chen sat with the rescued prisoners from the tribunal's detention centers, beings from dozens of worlds who had been imprisoned for opposing the corrupt system. Beside them, former tribunal officials who had cooperated with the transition process sat as witnesses to the proceedings. High Magistrate Sektar himself stood in the defendant's dock, no longer the imposing figure who had condemned Alina to death. His trial had been fair, thorough, and public, everything his own tribunal had never been. The evidence against him was real, not fabricated, and the judgment was reached through debate and consensus rather than authoritarian decree. Captain Alina Vasquez died believing in humanity's potential for peace. Admiral Cross continued. But she also knew that sometimes peace must be defended with strength. The galaxy is a safer place today because she was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for justice. Behind her, a holographic display showed Alina's image alongside those of other beings who had died under the tribunal's corrupt system. Their sacrifice had not been in vain. The new Galactic Assembly would ensure that no diplomatic envoy would ever again face execution for seeking peace. As the proceedings continued, representatives from hundreds of worlds stood to pledge their support for the new system. The Hive Collective, the Aquatic Union, the Stellar Nomads, and many others committed their resources to building institutions based on cooperation rather than domination. Humanity had entered the galactic stage through tragedy, but they had transformed that tragedy into triumph. The species that the tribunal had tried to eliminate as a threat had instead become the catalyst for the galaxy's liberation from tyranny. Alina Vasquez had been right in her final words to the tribunal. They had made a terrible mistake in underestimating humanity, but their greatest error was not recognizing the humans fight hardest not for conquest or glory, but for justice and the protection of the innocent. The galaxy would never make that mistake again.